Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Wander and Prepare. Today I am very excited because I have a knife that I've been wanting to do a cutting test with for a very long time. And that knife is the TJ Schwartz Overland X. So the Overland model, they have three different models. So this is the middle one. They have a larger version and they have a smaller version called the Sport. So one of the things that I think is just so special about this knife is, honestly, I don't even know if Schwartz knows this, but he almost designed the perfect knife. And I'll tell you why. So for me, the sheep's foot blade, which this one comes in, is just absolutely perfect for any kind of cutting task that you could possibly want to do. But his secret is this little swerve down right here. You see when I hold this, my fingers are out of the way of the cutting surface. Literally, I can get all of that cutting surface on the table and use 100% of the blade. No other knife does that because when you put your fingers here, the blade is literally in line with the handle, and I can literally get about that much of the edge to actually use on a flat surface. So he almost created the perfect knife, and we're going to talk more about that towards the end. So talk a little bit about this. So this one's really cool. So they actually sent me this knife to review. So let's get a little close up of it. So it's got a micarta handle, and if you can see behind those black screws, there's some brass inserts. And the sheath, I actually have a couple things I did to the sheath. So this is a little big for what most people would consider a neck knife, but that's really what I wanted this knife for. But if you look at the sheath, so it's actually green in color. It's probably hard to see the color on it, but it's got the brass rivets in there. And I wanted this specifically for a neck knife. So I actually have the Wazoo Viking Spark. So this is a whetstone. It has a striker there, has a ferro rod there, and comes on a leather necklace. And I think it is absolutely perfect to pair with a neck knife, which is exactly what I wanted this one for. So for me, the Overland X is just one of those perfect utilitarian camp style knives that just anywhere I go outdoors, this is one I'm gonna want with me. Now, it's not one that I'm gonna wanna do larger tasks with. I'm still gonna wanna carry a larger knife with us. But when I talk about around camp, around home, it's just the perfect knife. And for me, kind of being an outdoorsman, I just really like carrying this one as a neck knife. Again, I'm kind of a giant, so I'm okay with the larger size. But honestly, it's not too large for me to use as a neck knife. I think most people would probably recommend the Sport more so for that. But I just really want something that's close to a 3-inch blade. This one's actually, I think, 3.2 inches if I'm not mistaken. Comes in Magna Cut steel. So, man, when I talk about doing things right, he almost got every single thing right about this. And at the end, I will show you one of the things that I think is missing on this knife. And literally, if that one thing was fixed, this would absolutely be my one and done. Like, rarely would I ever need another knife. I might need a bigger one just for some kind of task, maybe batoning. Although this is Magna Cut, it absolutely can baton. It's just not really the size knife that I want to use for batoning. So let's get into it. So let's start with the paper cut. And man, it's hard to explain just exactly how sharp this knife is, but it is crazy sharp. So let's just go ahead and show you. I mean, I don't think any other knife we've had on the table has been able to do something that finely. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. The other thing I feel like is just a little crazy about this, come get one more close up. So if you can see that edge on the knife, I'm used to an edge being fairly large. Well, I don't know if it's the grind of this, but man, that edge is absolutely tiny on this knife. But it is not a negative in any way, as you see on slicing ability. And we're gonna cut some other things on the table, so we're gonna see just how good it is. So let me clear some of my things out here, and then we're gonna get started. So I'm super excited about this one. Again, if I could say, if there's one knife that's just close to perfect, this one's absolutely it. So what do we want to start with? All right, let's start with the Titan Survivor cord. So again, this is one I talk about all the time. It has the metal snare in it, and that's what makes this one so hard to cut. So let's see how it does. I mean, I actually thought that I didn't cut it. It went through it so easy. I thought that it slipped off, but it went all the way through that with ease. So that one, most knives can go through that one with pretty good ease. Let's see how it does when I set it down on the table and slice through it. So one of the things really cool about this one, so I know a lot of times when I do this, you see me kind of do that rocking motion. All right, so it did hang up on that metal snare. So let's just see if I can go. I literally cut like a big piece of my table there. Let's see if I can just kind of rock it back and forth and get through that metal snare. There you go. So actually, it's funny. So you see right there is where I was trying to cut. That's the original cut that I was making with it. So it pretty much got through it. Can you see that? So pretty much got through it. Just struggled just a little bit. But that's one of the things that's so great about this is that rocking motion. All right, so that was the paracord. So this one is the plastic clothesline, and I think this is going to demonstrate just how sharp and how easily this thing cuts, and also going to demonstrate how you can get your fingers out of the way. So watch this real quick. So I'm literally just going to put a little bit of force down here, and it goes through it with relative ease. So that was the end of the knife where I was able to cut most other things, but keep watching. Now I'm going to get all the way at the end here and see I can still go down and my fingers are not in the way. I can literally get right up against that sharpening coil and cut that. But man, when it cuts so easily, it's just hard to describe. Look at it, I found something that I actually struggle with. There it is, hanging up on those little fibers in there. But man, I mean, just so enjoyable going through that. And just the fact that you're able to do that rocking motion just makes it so easy to cut through things like this. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So just, I can't describe a sheep's foot blade and just how utilitarian that blade really is. And it is just absolutely perfect. And just the fact that if they design a sheep foot blade that you can get your fingers out of the way for cutting, it is just absolutely the perfect knife. All right, let's keep on going. Let's cut, let's do some rope. So I actually excited to show you a new rope. So this is the rope we've been cutting. This is just some regular jute twine. Well, this is some polypropylene rope, and we'll get to that in a minute, but let's see how it does on the twine. So this is also, you're gonna be able to see that rocking motion, because literally when I slice it, I can kind of rock it back and forth like that, and it just makes it go through it so much easier. And if you see, super, super clean cut. All right, so that was the standard jute twine. So now let's look at this polypropylene rope. So the jute twine, by the way, this one's rated for about 400, just a little over 400 pounds. This one's rated for a little over 1,000 pounds. So I actually got this at Tractor Supply, and when I went to cut this, I could not cut it with the pocket knife I had in my pocket. Like, it just wasn't doing anything. So I actually literally had to go ask for help to get somebody to cut this. And they, no joke, used a chain cutter to cut this. It was absolutely insane. Now, full disclosure, I actually did use this knife to cut this rope beforehand, so I know it cuts through it, but I just want to show you how easily it cuts through it. So, and this is probably not gonna make my build up to this rope any better because of how good this one cuts it, but it is a really good sharp knife. And if it was not sharp, it would not be able to get through this at all. So I'm gonna have to turn it a little bit just to get through some of those fibers. Man, crazy. There you go. But that is probably the new hardest thing to cut on the table. It's just absolutely incredible. But so I think I talked about this before. I love to have a clean knife. So anytime I see little things like that on the knife, you're probably gonna see me. I do that. I just get it on my shirt, wipe it off on my shirt. I just can't stand a dirty knife. So take a look at that edge. So far, that little edge is holding up just fine. All right, get these things out of the way. And here's some more rope. Again, this is not climbing rope, but let's see how easily it cuts that. One little fiber right there, but let's do it again, just for good measure. Cuts through it with ease. All right, what do we want to do now? Let's try the toe strap. So this is a 24,000 pound toe strap, and let's just see how well it cuts it. So we're first gonna cut it this way. And struggling a little bit to get through it. See if I can get it at a better angle this way. There we go. So there you go, got through it. Now, most knives can get through it like that, but what they really struggle with is cutting it on the table like this. So I'm very curious to see how this one's going to do. So not the cleanest cut, but got through it. Took a few extra times, but was able to get through it. All right, now let's see how they do with zip ties. So let's get a small zip tie, go through it, goes through it pretty easily. All right, let's put it down on the table. And usually I always have to put just a little bit of force, but whoa, not hardly any force at all. Goes through that with relative ease. All right, let's step it up. Here is a medium duty zip tie. Goes through that one pretty easily. All right, let's see how it gets through it this way. Able to do that rocking motion like I'm talking about with that sheep's foot blade. Man, gets through it with ease. All right, now let's step it up to the heaviest duty zip tie that I have and see how that does. Again, goes through it with ease. All right, goes through that pretty easily too. All right, so that was a zip tie. So now let's try the piece of radiator hose. So I've talked about this a lot, but you can kind of see the reinforcement on the outside there, and you can see the reinforcement, the little white in there, just a little bit. Let's see how it goes through that. So actually struggling with that a little more than I thought it would. Let's go through it on the top. Man, cuts through that with relative ease. And now once it's in half like that, let's see if I can cut through it long ways like this. Do that little rocking back and forth, goes through it with ease. All right, so let's take a look. We've done quite a bit. Let's take a look at that edge. We're still looking good. All right, so I think we got all of that done. So this knife is touted to be a outdoor knife. So it is called the Overland. Just kind of screams it's supposed to be an outdoor knife. So I told you guys when I did outdoor knives, we're gonna see if they will baton. So let me hold this here, get my baton here. Let's see if it'll go through it. Relative ease. Let's take a look. No damage to that blade. All right, so I told you in the beginning that this knife was almost perfect, and I will show you why I said that. So, in my opinion, if it's an outdoor knife, it should be able to start a fire. So let's just see if it will throw a spark. So I got a really good quality overlapping fire rod. And let's just see if it will throw any sparks at all. Nothing. Oh, right there on the edge. All right, look at that. So not really a sharpened spine. It's throwing a few sparks, but I don't know if it will throw enough. All right. So I was actually reading about this, and I knew about this before I got this knife, which is why I said that it is almost perfect. However, I did have somebody say that they think you might be able to strike a ferro rod right here on this little edge. Not the edge of the knife, but the edge of the sharpening coil right there. So we're just gonna see. It does. But as you can tell, you gotta be very careful not to get the edge, but it is not throwing a lot of sparks. So that's why I say, when he almost created a perfect knife, that's the one thing missing. So if it is touted to be an outdoor knife, again, needs to have the strength to baton wood, no problem whatsoever, does that with ease, but it needs to be able to start a fire. Now, let's talk about that just for a little bit, because I think most people think when you baton something that it's only really used for starting a fire. Well, that's not true. So when you have a 90-degree spine, you can do a couple things with it. So the first thing you can do is scrape. So what you get by scraping is I can get little pieces of the wood off. You see how I'm getting that right there? So if I need some tinder, I can scrape this wood and I can get me some little bitty shavings off right there. And I can get enough of those and that will help me start a fire. But of course, obviously the one thing it's definitely good for is starting a fire. Oh, there you go. It started up with the very first one. I just put it out. I don't know if you can see it, but it's burning. There you go. So, big miss on the TJ Schwartz. But other than that, guys, I'm not gonna lie. He created the perfect knife. All right, I just see the cardboard here and realized we forgot to cut some cardboard, so we're gonna do that. So, set this over here. By the way, I had to use my scout feather to light that. The scout feather, in my opinion, has one of the most perfect sharpened spines I've ever seen out there. But very, very good knife. All right, so let's take a look at some cardboard. This is just some standard Amazon box. Tore that one a little bit, but I think that was me, not the knife. All right, so let's see how it does. I'm gonna lay it down on the table. Real easy. Goes through it easy. So, if I had to guess, one of the reasons why it kind of tears that box just a little bit, I don't think that has anything to do with the sharpness of the knife. I think that's that tininess of the edge, and that's kind of one of the challenges with this. So, I might put this thing on the sharpening stone and just see how well this thing does, and see if I can get the edge just a little bit bigger and see if it improves it just a little bit. But guys, there you have it. So, might be one of my new favorite knives, even though it's missing that one ability for me. But man, TJ Schwartz, you almost got this one perfect. This is an absolute wonderful knife. It just needs the ability to have a somewhere on there a sharpened spine. It doesn't have to be the whole spine, but if it just had somewhere that it could strike a ferro rod, do some scraping, this would be the absolute perfect knife. So there you have it, guys. The TJ Schwartz Overland X. So just remember, as we're out there wandering and preparing, let's do so by faith and not by sight. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you.